Zach Joubert, welcome.
Good morning, Jorne.
I must say, English and English Joubert.
In English Joubert, they do exist, but
Yeah.
I can speak Afrikaans, but I don't think I'll put your listeners through the torment of listening to me.
That is perfect.
In
No,
Afrikaans.
no problem. I want to start just a background about yourself. Just tell our viewers and listeners about yourself, a little bit background.
Well, I'm Zach Joubert. I'm actually an advocate by day and a geek by night. I've spent the last 6 years practicing as an advocate, but I had a bit of a detour in my career in that I spent a few years in the UK studying computer games design and have a bit of a geek background. I was a software developer for a while, and now I have a special interest in intellectual property law and computer law. And about a year ago, I got this idea to start a side business, which was a virtual reality arcade, which has been taking up quite a lot of my time the last couple of months. But I am still doing both things.
And it fits in with our first guest today. You know, talking about teenagers don't know what to do, career changes. And it's quite amazing. Did you ever think that you're going to be both?
Well, I always
Or make
knew,
money with both? Yeah.
I always wanted to have a varied career because I thought that if you focused on one thing for the entirety of your professional life, you might get a bit bored. So it's always nice to be able to move around. And I think that that's something that all the teenagers out there should know, is that when you make your decision, it's not a life decision. You can always chop and change, and the skills and experiences you pick up in one job are transferable. So one thing I've learned as a lawyer is that you learn to negotiate and do business deals, and you can take that into business. So certainly it's not the end of the world if you make the wrong decision when you first choose your initial undergraduate studies.
So before we get to the virtual reality, so you also studied game
Game
development
design, computer science.
and
yes,
computer science,
yes.
and then law as well.
No, how it worked is I went straight out of high school into law school.
Okay.
And then I went out of law school into pupillage, which is training to become an advocate.
Sure.
And so it was, I felt a little bit young to be running high stakes litigation. So I wanted to try something else.
Yes.
So I went to the UK, did games design, and worked as a software developer for a few years. But a few years in the UK is enough for anyone to realize that South Africa is by far the best country in the world.
Definitely.
And the weather in the UK started getting me down.
Yeah.
And my parents moved to Cape Town, and Cape Town is just a magnificent city. So
No,
I
it
thought
is.
I'd try living there and being a lawyer, and it's been great. But I carried with me that sort of that
The
bug.
playfulness.
Yeah, and I
kind of.
wanted to do something because I spent the last 6 years fighting over
Yes.
high stakes issues. I wanted to do something a bit more playful, and that's where the arcade came from.
And it's quite amazing. You know, virtual reality, we had guests here that they're using here Tux in the mines, and it's the only one also like in Africa with 4 meters. But, you know, I got a sense, I went there, and then I went onto like some of your videos with the arcade.
Yes.
And it's just amazing. It puts you into that game as a person. So just give us a background, virtual reality, what it's all about for the listeners and the viewers.
Virtual reality is a computer simulation, and the way that it works is that you put on a headset that presents a slightly different image to each eye and creates a 3D environment that you can perceive. So the fact that you have two different images in each eye creates a sense of depth.
Okay.
And the fact that when you move your head, the picture updates to simulate the fact that you're in another place. Instantly updates, so it creates an illusion that you're in another place. Now, if you have the high-tech equipment that we're using in our arcade, you go to the next level so that if you move forward, backwards, duck, move your hands, you're interacting with the simulated environment. And using really high-tech computers and very good headsets, you can achieve a level of immersion that can trick you into believing that you're actually somewhere else. So by doing that, you can walk around underwater, you can climb mountains, you can fly through the sky, you can fly ships through outer space, you can have a boxing match, you can have multiplayer deathmatch cooperative shooters against zombies. And people get so immersed that they actually believe that they're there. And I actually cannot describe it. You have to experience virtual reality to know what it's all about.
Because I've seen you guys standing around people playing a game, and it's exactly that. You know, you see this person with I mean, you've got one of the props
Yes,
here,
yes.
And they've got that on their eyes, and you can see they're totally in a different world. You know, in reality, you just see this guy moving around,
They
going
don't even
crazy.
know that you're there.
Yeah.
They're in their own world.
They're in their own world. Okay,
Yes.
that's fantastic. So, just, I mean, if you take the software, is it very advanced? Is it very expensive to start up something like this?
The main cost is the hardware. That's really the biggest barrier to anyone starting something like this. And the main cost for the average South African, or the main difficulty, is getting the hardware because it's not for sale in South Africa. If you want to get the best headsets, you need to get them in other jurisdictions. And that's one of the things we do is we source the software in other countries and bring it in, not the software, the hardware, bring it into South Africa. But the software is also a challenge. So if you want to do something commercial, if you want to stay legit and do this legally, you need licenses from the software developers. And there are a few sort of arcades popping up around the country who that aren't licensed.
Yes.
So if you want to support the industry and you don't want to engage in piracy, you should check that whoever you're using has actually got licenses for the software that they're using.
Sure. Yes. But you haven't expanded yet. You're in Cape Town? Where exactly in Cape Town?
We're at the waterfront.
At the waterfront.
So there's a building called the Watershed next to the Two Oceans Aquarium.
Yes.
We're upstairs in there, just above the market. And we took quite a long time to find the perfect location, but we're working in collaboration with Workshop 17, which is a high-tech startup collaborative working space. And we think it's the perfect location for an arcade. And we really see VRCade Cape Town as the prototype. We want to roll out, open in other locations, and we're looking at spots in Johannesburg as well.
Definitely. Zach, we just spoke, for people that didn't tune in earlier. You an advocate, and also you started this VRCade, and it's virtual reality. It's you into the game, you in the game. And I just want to find out different games. I went also on your, saw your videos, but also your press release. There's different kinds of games. There's fitness, there's war, zombies. What's some of the games that people can play?
Well, there are lots of different games, but they're not just games. There are also experiences. So not everybody is into video games.
Yes.
So there is one experience in particular that we love. It's called The Blue. You walk around underwater and have a look at whales and jellyfish and fish, that sort of thing. There are experiences where you're floating around in outer space. So if you're not into video games, it's also good. But in the games section, there are awesome games too. And there are games that you don't have to be fit for, games that are quite passive. There are also games where you do need a relatively high level of fitness. For instance, boxing. I mean, I can sustain about 3 rounds, and then I'm completely exhausted. I'm breathing heavily. My heart rate is very accelerated, and it's a lot of fun, and it feels very real. There's a game called Cyberpunk, where you are bouncing balls of blocks and trying to destroy the blocks, and the balls multiply, and they end up being about 8 in the air at the same time. And trying to keep up with those blocks is also very tiring. And there's various other games that are incredibly physically active, such as Space Pirate Trainer, where you are shooting at robots that are coming at you from the sky, and you've got to duck and weave and block. So there's constant movement, and at last, video games are promoting fitness, which is something that's been a long time coming.
That's one of the questions, the level of fitness that you as a user need to have. Is it quite important?
No, because there's a wide selection of games and experiences that we've licensed. So if you're not the fittest person, you just don't do the very active experience.
So, I mean, the practical side of getting the VRCade going, since you got the idea, importing the machines, or where's it from? How did you start?
Well, it all started when I put one of these devices on. This is a Samsung Gear that puts a cell phone up against your face, and I was amazed at how immersive it was, given that it's running on a cell phone. And I thought, well, what if you used a proper computer and a proper headset? How good can it be? And there was a lot of hype surrounding VR for a long time. And at last, Facebook bought Oculus for $2 billion in 2014. Everybody started talking about VR and realized that it was finally the tipping point where it was going to happen. And I realized it's, this arcade concept, because South Africans won't have access to this equipment, was a good way to revive the arcade. Because the video game arcade was an awesome place. People used to hang out and have social video gaming experiences. Then the consoles came and destroyed that. Everybody started playing video games alone. And now we can get back to the social aspect of gaming, which I think is the best part of gaming.
And they even said it with this, I've never played it, the Pokemon thing, that got children at least outside.
Yes.
But now it's physical. You just don't sit there on your couch.
Yes.
You're standing up, you're actively involved, and it's social. Do you think other tech entrepreneurs in South Africa, you think the future is bright?
Absolutely. I think South Africa is a great place for tech, because South Africa's got a lot of difficulties and challenges, and that's what tech is for. And there's quite a few areas where South Africa can excel. And I think in particular where it comes to content creation, software development, VR content creation, because of the exchange rate. We can manufacture these things much cheaper than almost anyone else, and we have the skills. So I think that we could create a very competitive VR and software development industry here.
And you yourself, how much time do you spend at the arcade yourself, playing stuff at night?
I quite a lot of time. Any downtime
You
that
need
I
to
have,
test it.
yeah, I have to test. I have to make sure that the games and the experiences are as good as we say they are.
But that's the thing about virtual reality, and we quickly spoke about it when I went to Tux, the mining one, that cylinder. It's a bit addictive as well because it really takes you, but it's positively addictive, into another world. It's an amazing
yes.
experience. It just takes you out of, just to relax or be active. So, I mean, for you, do you think you can use it in other ways than just gaming or experiences?
Absolutely. The applications are almost limitless, and people are still trying to figure out all the ways in which it can be used. The most obvious ones that are already starting to come online are things like architecture, showing your clients what their house is going to look like before it's built. Realtors are showing potential clients' houses.
You can just walk through the house.
You can walk through a house. You can be sitting in London, walking through a mansion in Camps Bay. No need to go and check it out, and you can see it in its best, most pristine state. There's other applications like education, and that's an important one for South Africa.
Yes.
There's all kinds of ways that you can train people in VR. So you can almost trace the motions that people would do, an expert would do within the virtual environment. Think about surgery. Think about any medical procedure. This is the future of education, and VR is going to revolutionize it. It's just about getting it into people's hands.
Definitely. Did you hear that, Andri? When you're in London, walking through a house in Camps Bay because we can't afford it anymore. You need the pound.
You need the pound.
And then, how far, we've got a minute, how far are we from the hologram, going virtual reality to holograms?
We're close.
So it's close.
Augmented reality is going to be even bigger than virtual reality.
And you will go there yourself as an entrepreneur.
Yes,
you'll evolve with the time.
We want to stay at the envelope the whole time. The first device that's going to become available to most people is the Microsoft device, which it's the Hololens.
Yes.
And you can basically project anything on any environment. So we could look at an architectural model on this table. I could move it around. We could inspect it together.
Yes.
And that's got great applications. Think about driving around with the GPS, where you get the instructions of where to turn right in front of you. No need to look at a phone. That sort of thing. It's really, really great. So,
right. Zach, VRCade, it is at the waterfront, and people must go visit.
In the watershed next to the Two Oceans Aquarium.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for the visit. We'll definitely come and support you.
Excellent.
So we can get to the holograms, and we'll pay, definitely. I can't wait to do this when I'm down in Cape Town again.
Great meeting you guys.
Great.